Hello, all glory to Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords. So, a friend put it to me, a couple of things a friend said to me recently, which I thought I wanted to talk about. The first one was he said that my videos don't make sense and I say a lot of things that aren't backed up by facts. And another thing he says is that he asked me like what my top 5 facts, things I'd learned from the Bible were. So I thought I'd speak to those two things. So the first thing, like I don't back up my things in my videos with evidence. Well, the videos that I'm making are like a complete series. I'm trying not to repeat myself. So, and it's impossible to prove from first principles every single point I'm making along the way. So I recognize that at this point in time, I'm not catering to people who don't know the Bible. If you don't know the Bible, it's going to seem like that. It's going to seem like I'm not backing up what I'm saying with evidence, because I'm making the assumption that the Bible is literally true and the King James Bible is literally true, and that you've read it and that you understand it and that you believe the same thing that I believe. And trying to convince, as I said, trying to lay out the entire argument, which, it's 120, this is the 127th or 28th or something video that I'm putting out now. Like, that's a lot of information and I've done a lot of reading as well, other information that I've collated my knowledge together and presented summaries in my videos, and I've presented links to things, and I've laid out an argument. And if you come in at the end, or if you come in at just one point and take that bit out of its context, then it's not going to make a lot of sense. And then that bit about the top 5 facts from the Bible, I think it's I guess an indictment of the education system, that people think that way, and that there's facts that you can learn. It's like sort of a scientific way of thinking. There's certain facts that you can learn, and that once you know those facts, you can hold on to those facts as these things are true. But it's not really the way things work. You can know facts but not know anything, because I think the important thing is the links between those things that you call facts, those bits of knowledge. There's lots of knowledge that exists. Some of it's completely useless knowledge because it doesn't relate to any of the important things. So, for example, like I'm doing at the moment a lot of videos on Mystery Babylon, and with the understanding, with the conclusion, I guess, that Mystery Babylon is Jerusalem, and then I'm laying out my argument. And so, if I was to tell you Jerusalem is Mystery Babylon, that doesn't mean anything to you in a vacuum. If that's true, let's assume that that's true. Well, okay, that doesn't help you in any way if that's the only thing you know. But then when you start to see, the Bible says all these things about Mystery Babylon, then you learn about the history of the world, and you learn about why it's Mystery Babylon, and sort of the other religions and how that's relating to the current events that are going on now, and how the mystery religions and science and all the different beliefs that seem to be coming together for this end time moment, and then seeing how this moment's going to play out. That it means something when you put things together. When you're talking about the beast, and I could say the beast is the revived Roman Empire or the revived Greek Empire or something like that. And that doesn't mean anything to you on its own, but then when you start to put the facts together, you understand the sun god worship and Apollo. You know where he fits in, and you know that he's mentioned in the Bible on verse 9. Chapter 9, verse 11 of the book of Revelation, and that links into, all right, there was 9/11, the Twin Towers attack. So that was a symbolic act by the deep state or the New World Order or whatever. And I don't know, all the facts that exist that I'm laying out. It's the relationship between those things. Something is more true if it's sort of true across a whole bunch of what would be the way to say it? The more links something has to other things, the more true it is. Or the more relevant it is, the more interesting it is. Like, there are people who devote their lives to computer games, for example. And I watch gaming stuff because I enjoy the technical aspect and the artistic aspect. And I enjoy thinking about the worlds that people create and the rules behind them. And I enjoy analyzing the way people behave in those environments, because there are different environments that exist within gaming worlds, and it's just fascinating to see the type of behavior that people exhibit within those parameters that exist in games. and there's a business aspect to it, and what happens when you change the game, what happens when you change the rules of the game. There are a whole lot of things that I find very interesting about computer games. But yeah, there's people who get really into games and they learn all these different sort of arcane bits of knowledge about the game that they're playing, and they can come up with sophisticated understandings within that game. But all that knowledge that they have doesn't relate to the real world, doesn't relate to anything they're doing. It's sort of abstract, useless, disconnected knowledge. And a lot of knowledge is like that. It's disconnected from the truth, like the true meaning. Like something can be, you can create your own little confined environment in which a whole bunch of things are true, but like within that environment, but they're not true outside of that environment. Like you might say, within this confined environment of a particular game we're talking about, you can jump a particular height, you can jump this number of pixels, but then when you pick up this item, your character can then jump a certain amount of pixels more. And that when there's certain parts in that game in which being able to jump those few more pixels when you have that item you picked up, maybe that lets you access this other area, and all this knowledge that within the confines of the game is relevant, but outside of the game is completely useless. So like as far as like top 5 facts in the Bible, there aren't really 5 facts. There are a series of revelations and connections between things. It's more like an increased resolution of understanding. There's an understanding that I have of the world, and since reading the Bible, and since asking Jesus to give me his Spirit, and since walking with Jesus and following the commandments of God and relying on the Bible, the more I do that, the higher the resolution the picture is of reality that I have, or that I feel like I have. And so, like as far as facts, it's more the relationships between things. And I can see more things, like when I'm looking at the world now, when I'm looking at the way things are going and the way people are behaving, and the things that exist in the world, I have a better understanding of where those things come from and the context within which they sit, let's say. So that's what I get from the Bible, and that's what I get from God. It's just it's a higher resolution picture. It's a more accurate understanding of reality. And yeah, so what I'm trying to do when I'm laying out my arguments, like in this Jerusalem is Mystery Babylon series that I'm doing, I'm laying out all of the evidence, because I think just having the conclusion doesn't really help you that much. You need to know why that conclusion was arrived at and why God's doing what he's doing. And there are good reasons. And if you read the Bible, it seems to be the case. I'm not completely finished through this series yet, but it seems to be the case that like there's good reasons, and it sort of helps you understand everything else. When you understand, like, assuming you're not looking at knowledge in this isolated game, assuming that like every piece of the puzzle fits together, and when you're looking at the Bible and reality, there are many pieces to the puzzle. I mean, there's Mystery Babylon, and there's the beast, and then there's Jesus, and how does that relate? And then our salvation, and all sorts of different things. There are all sorts of factions at play. There are all the different regions of the world that are mentioned, all the different nations of the world. And there are so many things, there's so many pieces to the puzzle. But as long as you're doing research into a piece of the puzzle that's relevant to the big picture, then understanding that piece then helps you, like when you understand that piece well, it helps you relate what's going on there, like Mystery Babylon. If we understand Mystery Babylon well, then we can then relate that to the other bits. We start to see the connections with the other pieces of the puzzle. And so we get a better picture, and we start to see, oh yeah, this bit fits here, this bit fits there, this thing means this thing means that. And like in the last video I talked a little bit about candles and light. And I didn't go into it in that much detail, but I just noticed when I was doing the research that there seems to be some association where, like in Revelation 18, it says in Mystery Babylon that the candle would no longer be in her anymore. And there are some other instances in the Bible where it talks about candles, and there's that bit in Proverbs where it talks about how the spirit of the candle of the man's spirit, or something like that, is the I can't remember what it said, like the eye of God, or I can't remember. I'll put it on the screen. And there's some other associations with candles, and just thought that was interesting. And as you go through and you learn more of those things. You learn how, like, more of those symbols. You learn more and more what they are and how they relate to the different aspects of the Bible, and that gives you and reality. And it gives you an understanding of what's going on. It gives you wisdom. You have knowledge and you have wisdom. You understand the connections between things. So that's just a little bit of an explanation as to sort of what's going on and what I think truth is and how that relates to facts, and you can know that a certain person was king at a certain date or whatever, but then knowing who they knew and what they believed and what they did and how that relates to the Bible and how that relates to the development of history and all those other things. It's when you start adding all the connections between the facts that those facts start to become useful and meaningful. So yeah, I hope that video helped you. May Jesus bless you and lead you to the truth. Amen.